Welcome to the Aro Benaiah Show, the podcast where we spotlight the builders, dreamers, and doers who work with their hands, their hearts, and their vision to create lasting impact. Today, I'm joined by Dusty Holcomb, a former CEO, five-time Ironman executive coach, and a founder of Archios Group. For nearly 3 decades, Dusty has led from the call center to C-suite, championing servant leadership and daily discipline. He now helps leaders trade people, trade burnout for clarity, chaos for alignment, and success for something deeper, purpose. He also hosts Leadership Unlock, where he explores the defining moments that shape how we lead and live. Dusty, it's an honor to have you on the show.
It's an honor to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
Dusty, what was it like growing up for you?
Growing up for me was a gift, and it was also hard. I mean, we grew up in the country, and my dad came from a farming family. So for us, it was about serving others. In fact, my dad was a farm services agent. And the first lesson he ever taught me was, hey, if you don't take care of the cows, they won't take care of you. So you have to work 365 days a year. And take care of those things which provide for you. So it was an incredible blessing to grow up and learn that lesson from a very young age.
Wow, amazing. So what was the first responsibility while growing up? What was the first couple of jobs? How sure you do at home that shaping your idea when it comes to leadership now?
You know, it's so funny. One of my very first jobs, and I could even say my first company, I formed when I was 11. And my brother and I had a yard maintenance company. We had business cards and everything. We even had contracts with our clients. And I didn't realize at the time that that wasn't what every kid did, but it was, it was hard work. It was manual labor. It was something I knew I didn't want to do forever. But what we learned was the value of a dollar, and we learned how taking care of the client was the number one objective. If we take care of the customer, they will have us come back. And so we have to earn that privilege every time we showed up. And that was a lesson that I've never lost in all the years. It's like we have to earn the customer's business every single day.
Wow, we have to earn the customer business every single day. That was really amazing. So you have led across different industry from call center to C-suite. How did those diverse jobs shape your perspective on people and business?
I wouldn't say that they shifted my perspective on people and business. I would say that they reinforced my views on the importance of people in business. And ultimately, when it comes down to, if you have a people-centric business, i.e., if you are delivering your product or your service through the efforts of a person, then the key to success is to ensure that the person who is closest to the customer is trained, taught, and empowered to do what's right for the customer. And so often we put the lowest common denominator person in that frontline role. We give them no training, we set no expectations, and we entrust to their values exactly what they're going to do for our customer. And that's completely backwards. What we have to do is make sure that we get the right people, we train them, we set expectations, we coach and teach them what great looks like, so that the person who's closest to the customer is delivering exactly what we want for the customer. If we take care of our team, they'll take care of the customer. And that's what takes care of the bottom line.
Wow, if we take care of the team, they will take care of the customer. And that's what take care of the bottom line. Thank you. I think this just speaks volume, especially for blue collar entrepreneurs, because sometimes a whole lot of them finding difficult when it comes to managing team, being that their whole lot of work is depend on people, and executing those jobs. It's between the interface of their workers who does work with them and the clients, not just AI or not just one machine here and there. So you just giving this blueprint really speak volume on training the people that work with us so that they could do a better job, because at the end of the day, when they feel treated well, they will treat our customer well, and at the end of the day, everything will work fluently. Yeah. So you often talk about self-leadership first. When did you realize this truth, and how did it actually guide your decision today?
Yeah, so I learned about servant leadership from my very first mentor, and he was a retired Army officer. And I was very, wet behind the ears, 21-year-old kid, and he promoted me into a leadership role. And at that point, it was for me what I understood to be a management role. And there's a big difference between a management and leadership roles. Now, you can have a leader in a management role, but you can also have a manager in a leader role, and that doesn't work as well. But what he taught me was, and this is the profound thing, is that my job as a leader was to ensure that leadership wasn't about me. It was about those to whom the care of the customer was entrusted, which meant that if I took care of my team and I served them, they would take care of the customers. Back to what we were just talking about. The key thing here is, though, that my job wasn't necessarily to make people happy. My job wasn't to make sure that, it was all warm hugs and kumbaya. My job was to make sure that we had the right people in place, that they understood success, and that I was supporting them, their growth, their capabilities, etc. And sometimes, from a servant leadership perspective, that means making sure that you set someone up for success, even if it's not in your own company, even if it's not in the role they're in. And I think that that's an important distinction, because servant leadership so often is viewed as soft leadership, and it's not that at all. But it is truly an understanding that leadership is not about you. It's about taking care of your team.
Wow, amazing. I think your definition of leadership in here and that of management just speak volume, because I think oftentimes it just speak volume to the business that succeed and the business that fail most times, is the fact that instead of seeing their role as a leader, they see it as management. And at the end of the day, they didn't get to invest in those who actually work with them. And you make reference of the fact that, yeah, leadership should come from the perspective of, even if it might not be within your confine, you train your workers, even if at the end of the day it's not going to. But being that you're actually more like seeing it as an ends to a means, being that you are the leader and you're actually meant to actually more like serve your customer, and owing to that, you can actually more like train everybody who work with you specifically to actually develop all the right skills so that they could go all ahead and actually do better job for your clients. So what role did your mentor play in your journey, and can you share specific lesson from that from some of the particular lessons you actually more like talked to you that still drove you today?
Yeah, so that was almost 30 years ago. And that mentor, that first mentor, that foundational mentor, and he taught me the lesson about what leadership is and isn't, which has formed every decision I've made as a leader since then. It actually has formed my life passion to become a better leader, to continually learn. But one of the most important lessons specifically that he ever taught to me was that we as leaders do not hold on to our people. Instead, we enable. And I'll give you an example. So I was 23 years old when I had an opportunity from another organization that I couldn't refuse. It was for a role that was way bigger than, frankly, I was qualified for. It was a way bigger opportunity than I had the skills and experience for, but they chose and selected me. So I went to him, and, I was terrified to turn in my resignation letter because I didn't want to let him
Yeah.
down. I love the guy. He had done so much for me. His reaction to my resignation was a profound moment. It was the codification and exemplification of everything he believed as a
Hmm.
leader. And what he did is he said, Dusty, I am disappointed, but I'm not surprised. And to be clear, Dusty, I'm not disappointed in you. I'm disappointed for us, because I knew that you were going to lose you if we didn't give you new opportunities fast enough. He said, but one of the greatest gifts that I ever learned in my very long military career is that when I had young soldiers or lieutenants or majors assigned to me, that they were only going to be assigned to me for a couple of years. My job was not to hold on to them and keep them in a role. My job was to help prepare them for their next role. I had to help them deliver the mission that we were charged with doing at that time, and I had to help them get ready for their next role. So, because of that, one of those foundational moments for me was I've never wanted to hold on to people, to kind of hold people back. Instead, I want to propel people. I want to elevate people. I want to push people. And oftentimes, people need that nudge, myself most certainly included, because we don't see the capabilities that we have from inside our own head. We're filled with, doubt and worry, and, we're not sure if we're worthy or all those things, but someone else can see it. And so I've took that lesson at 23 years old, and 25 years later, it still has been a foundational principle for me.
Wow, that was really, really, really profound. Yeah, really. I'm just imagining how that moment would have been for your mentor, being that despite he has a whole lot to lose, you live in the company at that particular point in time. But the fact that he was so sincere and actually more like give you this feedback of actually using the military actually to make reference of if you are we don't like definitely we know that we're going to lose you along the line of the business. And yeah, it's really, really profound. I know that that moment would not be very, very lovely, being that it energizes you to look forward and pass it on again, because it's really, really amazing. Just hearing it now, just more like just filled me with a whole lot of possibility of having workers work with you. And when you see it from that particular perspective, you'll be seeking their advancement, not just they are staying long in that business without advancing themselves in every endeavor. They actually more like choose to grow. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this, Toasty. Um,
Of course.
yeah, so many trade people and entrepreneurs start small. What daily habit actually help you to scale your career without losing sight of your value?
It's a great question. And I like the question because you took it to the daily habit. Oftentimes, with entrepreneurs, we can think about, hey, I want to achieve this big goal. And big goals, big things are not achieved, in big events. They're achieved by our daily habits. So I'll give you two that I think are foundational for success. And I've yet to met an entrepreneur who does them who hasn't achieved some level of success because they focus on the right things. It's a daily planning ritual every day. The first 15 minutes of the day, when I go from a mental mode past, my morning journaling and devotionals and meditation. But when I switch to work mode, the first 15 minutes is a planning of the day. What am I going to do today that is my number one thing? That if at the end of the day, if I don't achieve anything else, but I achieve this one thing, then I will have advanced the ball towards my quarterly OKR, my annual goal, whatever my goal is. That's number one. And then the second habit is the end of day, where I take the 5 minutes to review on what happened, what went well, what didn't, what was my 5%, what was the 5% of the day where I created the most value. And then how do I do more of that? How do I expand that time into, becoming 10% of my day or 20% of my day? But that's my daily habit that allows me not to get lost in all the things that have to be done, but to never lose sight of the most important thing that has to be done.
Wow, this is really, really profound. It looked like it's not a big deal, but just looking at the intricate of it, it just speaks volume to what load of possibility that could actually bring into being. Because it's I think doing this at first it may be a bit demanding, but as it keeps going on, you start even capturing the day, even while you are working, being that you know that in the evening of it, you are going to sit down with your thought and actually analyze everything that went on, which will actually more like sharpens your mind on how you should respond to some certain stuff and how you should actually more like make plans to execute better.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, while you first start the habit, it gets it can be frustrating, right? You don't want to do it, but then you get to the point where you don't know how to execute your day without it, right? It's like having a car without gas. You don't know how to
Yeah.
do because otherwise you just show up and react. And what I coach leaders on, and coach myself on, is I want to be on the balls of my feet all day. I don't want to be on my heels. I don't want to be punching from my heels. I want to be up on the front of my feet. I want to be moving forward with intention. And oftentimes we get on our heels and we're reacting to whatever the world throws at us. We can't be intentional with achievement of our goals if we're in a reactive state. We have to be intentional with how we choose to spend our time.
Wow. 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 That was amazing. That was amazing. I mean, we can actually more like choose to actually take care of our day, getting all we need to do if we're in the reactive stage, compared to if we're actually planning everything ahead and we're able to take responsibility and take them one day at a time, just as we planned it on our show notes. Um, so you have maintained a 28 years streak of daily leadership reflection. How has this discipline influenced your clarity and resilience?
You know, there's so much wisdom that comes from a quote. And so every day for 28 years, I have found a quote and thought about it. And it could only be maybe for 5 minutes, but I have thought about the quote and reflected on that and said, this is important. And this is what I'm going to talk about. This is what I'm going to think about. And it's helped me become a better thinker because I start the day with intentional thinking.
Can you hear me? Hello. Oh, sorry
All right.
for yeah, the network just kicked me out. I'm sorry.
No worries. I answered I use Riverside for my podcast as well. So I answered the question and you should have a clean edit.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. So servant leadership is at the heart of your philosophy. What does it mean in practice and in practice, especially for those leading small team of trade business?
Yeah. And so I want to make a really important distinction here. Like we're going to talk about leadership, but there's a big difference as we were talking earlier between managers and leaders. I have worked for 11 people in my career. I've worked for 3 leaders. And so there's like, and that's, I've polled lots of people. That's a fairly
Yeah.
typical ratio of leadership. What does it mean to practice servant leadership in a small team? Any team. It means you show up to ensure the success of those on your team. And with a small team, you've got to make sure they understand why we're here, where we're going, how we're going to get there, where they fit in, and what's in it for them. Like if you can answer those 5 questions and ensure that they can answer those 5 questions, then you are serving your team. Like, hey, in a small team, I think one of the principles of servant leadership is we're all here to win together. You know, I'm not the boss. I'm not the manager
Yeah.
who's, got to watch you do it. We're just going to roll our sleeves up and get it done. And, I've been the CEO of organizations and cleaned the toilets at the same time. So, that's what servant leadership is. Servant leadership is walking the talk with the folks, not because you're putting on a show, but because it's what you believe. And you can't fake it. You just can't fake
Yeah.
it.
Wow, amazing, amazing. I think the fact that you just make reference of clarity of purpose, it's really, really key when it comes to leading little teams so that they will know what the direction is, how we are going to get there, and what is their role in getting there. Yeah, which really speak volumes because once everybody is carried along on what the expectation is, they are clear of what they ought to do to actually more like at the end of the day achieve the desired results. So burnout is common in leadership and business. What warning sign should people watch out for? While actually growing?
What's a warning sign for
Burnout.
burnout? Yeah. The way I think about it is like this: when you're not doing your best work, or it's taking you longer than normal to do work that used to inspire and motivate you, you're approaching burnout. And burnout doesn't have to mean you hate the work. It just means you're tired of the work. Like you are at a rate of diminishing returns. So some warning signs that I work with and see teams on is when they're having to burn the midnight oil, what they're going to be to get it all done. It tells me that they're at burnout, not because that's what it takes, but because they're not working efficiently. And ultimately what that means is they haven't clarified the most important things. They're trying to do too much. And it goes back to what you were just saying. Like the burnout is a symptom of a lack of clarity.
Mm.
Burnout is a symptom of a lack of alignment to a project, to a target, to a vision, to that clarity you're trying to achieve. So, you can have burnout because you're the wrong person in the role. If you put me in an accounting role, I'm going to burn out because it's going to take me 3 times as
Yeah.
long as somebody who's really good at that. That's not what I'm gifted to do. But if you love what you do, the type of work, so we're just going to assume that you're the right person in the right seat doing the right work. If you're burning out, it's more a case of a lack of prioritization and a lack of clarity. And what you have to watch out for is when it starts taking you longer to do work that you love than it should, because you're burning the candle at both ends. You're really tapping into that law of diminishing returns, and it's not the right place to be. So we see it all the time, and it's something that it doesn't have to be that way. And frankly, I have to watch out for it myself because I love the work that I do and it's not work. But if I don't put guardrails in to protect myself, then I start to be less effective at the work I'm doing on the margins, and I'm not actually creating value.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think the fact that you actually make reference of burnout is as a result of not having clarity, not having the skill sets, and also not having, yeah, all it takes to actually get that job done as fast as it can. And the fact that it linger into burning the midnight oil, it just speak volume to the fact that you're actually more like, yeah, there are other things that you ought to be doing other than doing that particular thing. Yeah, thank you. So for entrepreneur in blue collar, what leadership blind spots did you often see? Did you often see holding them back when they are actually more like growing?
Yeah, one of the blind spots that holds entrepreneurs back, and it can be in any type of business, blue collar or not,
Yeah.
is holding on to the work, becoming the bottleneck for decision making. And so instead of spending time setting clear expectations and then coaching and training people on what is necessary to meet those expectations and then creating a culture of accountability, they just keep the work themselves and they become the bottleneck. So they end up spending 80% of their time on the things that create 20% of the value in the business, and that doesn't create a growth business. It creates basically a never ending work stream. So when entrepreneurs who were typically, it's their baby, it's their business, they're doing all the hard work, as soon as they can afford to identify the 10 tasks that they hate doing that take a lot of time and they need to get off their plate and they can afford to pay somebody to do it, they should, if it frees them up to go get more customers, to go do more business, things like that. So that's the most common thing I see with entrepreneurs is they hold on to too much for too long.
Wow, holding on for too long. Yeah, I think this really speaks volume because if they are at the end of the day, the every decision need to pass through them, which simply means they can't leave. They can't leave the company for vacation or any other thing at all. It just speaks volume to the fact that these are little details which actually hold them back from leading effectively. So, if someone is just starting out, what is the best way to find internship, mentorship opportunity with established leaders?
The first thing to do, and I would do if you're looking to get mentorship, is find a community, find a tribe, find an online group. The first place I always tell people to go to is find a good book. Start with reading anything and everything you can. There's amazing podcasts like this one. There's amazing books. There's amazing
Thank you, sir.
articles. but listen and learn. Harry S. Truman once said that not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. And so you learn, learn, learn. Find a mentor, take them to coffee, make it a regular chat, but never lead alone. Never be stuck in an echo chamber or an isolation chamber by yourself. If you're wanting to lead others, understand that it's not about you, and there is wisdom on leadership. There's millennia of wisdom on leadership in the great books of the world. Go learn.
Wow, 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 amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I think the fact that you speak volume to uh, all readers are not leaders, but definitely all leaders are actually readers. You just speak volume to, apart from readings and everything, take action at the end of the day. Because you could actually more like do a whole lot of readings, which at the end of the day look as though you are just doing mental masturbation without actually taking action on those particular ideas and insights you already got. Yeah, thank you. So you have actually done iron races. What lessons from endurance sports apply directly to leadership and entrepreneurship?
I'll give you 3 lessons that apply from endurance sports into leadership. Lesson number 1: when you sign up for an Ironman race, you're signing up a year in advance, and it's a distance that is mentally and physically challenging. 2.4 mile swim, 112 miles on the bike, 26.2 mile run, 140.6 miles total over a 17-hour maximum time. But the key here is not that you're racing 140.6 miles. The key is that you're going to begin to plan. You're going to begin to prepare and break it down into chunks. So my very first Ironman race, I started training 364 days before the race. And I got on my bike and I did a ride. And you do that and you build. So what happens, it's the same thing in leadership. You don't just set a goal and then magically show up and get it done. You build a plan, you work your plan, and you execute every day, even when you don't want to, even when you don't want to do it, even when it's hot outside. You do the work. So I think that that's lesson number 1 that you can learn from endurance sports is you have to have a plan and you have to do the work.
Wow, amazing.
Lesson, yeah,
Okay.
lesson number 2 is when you get to the race, you're not racing the whole thing. You're mentally breaking it into chunks. So you don't swim 2.4 miles. You swim to the next buoy, and then you swim to the next buoy. You break it down into small, digestible, mentally achievable tasks. Because if you let yourself think about, hey, I still have 2 miles left, you can psych yourself out of the game. But if you focus on what you can do and right in front of you, you can get through anything. And then the third lesson is when it gets to a dark place, and in the backside of a marathon or the backside of an Ironman marathon where you've been racing for 10, 11 hours, you're out there on the course, everything hurts. You have to shut down the little voice that says you can't do this or you need to quit, and you have to listen to the goal, the voice in your mind that attaches to the goal that says one more step, just keep running. And so that same thing in business. It's not always going to be perfect and sunny and beautiful, and there are going to be dark days, challenging days, hard days. We always want to applaud the person who's the overnight success. What we don't see is how many dark, lonely nights they were working through the night, trying to scrape together enough to get by. Those are 3 lessons you can learn from doing endurance sports.
Amazing, amazing. I think the endurance sport just speak volume to endurance really speak volume when it comes to the sport, being that you plan ahead, you practice ahead, and also while you're actually executing it, you have to hold on, you have to be patient, hold on, persevere while actually doing it. And I think it just shows more like the life cycle of a business, being that you're planning the investment and everything, and after you're done, you have to hold on, even when things might not go right, even when things might not go very well. Until you actually more like get towards the finish line, which is a bit by bit, which wow, this is really, really amazing. So thank you. So on your podcast, Leadership Unlock, you explore defining moments. What's one key keystone moments in your own journey that change how you lead?
Yeah, and we have so much fun on Leadership Unlocked because we talk to guests and understand their keystone. But a keystone moment for me that came before I was in a leadership role is I had a college admissions counselor, university counselor, tell me that I probably wasn't cut out for college, that I needed to, maybe go to trade school or do something else. And that was a wonderful career opportunity, but it wasn't me. And so my keystone moment was choosing not to be a victim of someone else's misunderstanding of who I was and what my
Yeah.
potential was, and instead using that as fuel to energize my own growth. And so I went back and met him 4 years later and handed him my diploma, graduating with honors, and said, "Thank you for the extra motivation." But those keystone moments are those inflection points. Sometimes you don't even know that you're experiencing them at the time, but when you look back, you look at that moment and you go, "This was a moment where I was formed, and the person I became was better because of this challenge, because of this opportunity, whatever it was." That was one of mine.
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing. Which simply means sometimes we even need some of those challenges so that they will actually more like propel us to look beyond ourselves and try to prove a point to that yes, actually things can actually more like go the other way once we actually put our attention and work to it. What are the five most important questions a leader must empower their team to answer, and why?
Yeah. Yeah, we've already touched on them because they're so important. Question number one: why are we here? What's our purpose
Mm,
beyond making money? And the reason these questions are so important is that when you, as a leader, can ask and answer these questions for yourself, and then you cast them into your team and they can answer them without you in the room, what you're doing is you're empowering the people who had the most information about the business challenges or the customer challenges right there in the moment to make the best decision possible. So the five questions are: why are we here? What's our purpose beyond making money? Where are we going? What's our vision? What are we trying to build? Who are we trying to become? Question number three: how are we going to get there? What's our plan? What's our process? What is it we are going to do? Question number four, and this is where many companies get it wrong because they don't take the necessary time to connect the dots for their team members. But question number four is: where do I fit in? How does my work matter? How does it connect to the plan? How does it connect to the vision? How does it connect back to our purpose? And then the last question, and it sounds like it's all about money, but it's not at all. The last question is: what's in it for me? And so when we can answer that question, and maybe a better way to phrase that question is: how will I measure success? And so when a person can answer that question, what's in it for me, or how do I measure success, they're able to connect the dots and understand that their work matters. And maybe that's going to be a promotion, maybe it's going to be a pay raise, maybe it's just going to be going home at the end of the day knowing they helped people. And that's all they need to do. But when they understand that, you get somebody who might be doing an unglorious job, but they don't see it that way. They see it as connected to a calling. They see it as connected to something that matters. And so, I can think of examples before where I was working with someone and they were in janitorial services. So their whole company was cleaning hospitals and schools. And their best people didn't treat their job as a cleaning company. What their best people did was treat the job as an opportunity to create a great place for the patient, to create a great place of learning for the students. So they were so focused on creating a place that was enabling the goal, and they loved it, and they were successful because of it.
Sorry, again.
No worries. I continued the answer, so you have a nice clean answer.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think it's really just speak volume the way you actually more like answers that particular question, because I discover a whole lot of the reason why a whole lot of our employees don't feel fulfilled doing what they do in a particular company is the fact that those questions are no answers, and they don't see how they fit in. They don't know what is in for them. And at the end of the day, they could actually more like take things lightly, being that they don't even know how, because they didn't see at any point to see that the company actually care about them, to actually more like give them a sense of yeah, once a particular employees know what their role is, how they fit in, what is in for them, and how everything is meant to be. I think the sense of fulfillment is even better, and they have this kind of a feeling of inclusiveness, being that they understood what the mission is all about, and then they know that we are all actually more like pushing to actually get a better deal, which at the end of the day is better for the clients and is better for the bottom line rather than the other way around. Yeah, thank you so much, Dustin.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So, trade people often rely on reputation and word of mouth. How can persuasion and leadership amplify their influence?
The way I would frame this is show up and do the work. Do it well, do it ahead of schedule. Like you have to do the little things that others aren't. So if you're in the industry, but in trades especially, like what is it that gives the industry a bad name? What is it that people don't get? How do you create value? And so I can think of examples where, I don't get a return phone call or people don't show up on time. Show up and do the unexpected behaviors that demonstrate a different mode of thinking, a different mode of value. And because the job is the job, you got to do the job
Yeah.
well, you have to do the job right, but show up in a way that is unexpected and creates value and delight for the customer, then you aren't providing a transaction, you're providing a value proposition. And that's what you need to do to create differentiation, which, in those businesses, it's word of mouth, it's referrals, right? That you've got to build trust, you have to build a reputation. So you have to decide what you want that to be, and then you have to go do it.
Thank you so much for that. I think view more like the product you offer as offering value to your clients really speak volume, because if you see it as transactional, at every point you are eager to just leave there immediately. You don't want to waste much time, and at the end of the day, you cut corners and the work is sharply done, which at the end of the day is not going to kind of give you a good recommendation or give you a good review, which later on leads to you actually lost out from a whole lot of the. So, what practical step can someone take to start leading with purpose, even if they don't have a formal title yet?
Well, you don't need a title to lead. Period. Full stop. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so, how do you lead with purpose? You have to ask yourself, what matters to me? What is it that I do that motivates me? Why am I here? And your purpose can be to provide for your family. That's a good purpose. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're going to make all of your decisions aligned with that purpose. And so if you want to lead with purpose, you need first and foremost to understand what's most important and understand this concept of I will anchor in why I was born. Now, it could be to provide for your family, it could be to have fun on the weekend, whatever that is. But if you want to lead with purpose, if you want to have influence, then you have to lead yourself first. You have to be a first principle thinker, which says, in order to have influence on others, I will lead myself. I will recognize that I am not where I want to be. I have room to grow. I have blind spots. I have opportunities to improve. I have gaps. Which of those gaps will limit my growth, and how do I solve for that? What book can I go read? What class can I go take? What mentor relationship can I go curate? When you do these things with intention over and over and over again, your leadership operating system compounds and you begin to grow in your influence. But everybody wants a silver bullet. They want to just become, immediately influential and leader, blah, blah, blah. Do the work. Learn that you don't have all the answers, and do the work.
Thank you so much, Dusty. I think this just actually speaks volume. The fact that you don't need a leadership position, you don't need a formal position to actually lead. Just take responsibility and do the work. So you have actually worked with high level executive. What lessons from the boardroom apply just as much to someone running a family owned trade business?
Uh, you know what? It's trust. It's building trust. It's showing up. It's um, acting with integrity. Family owned trades business, trust matters. Boardroom, trust matters. People matter. There's no difference. We're all people at
Yeah.
the end of the day. Say what you're going to do what you said, and then do it again, and then do it again. If you embrace a mentality of always providing more value to the customer than they paid for, you will get more customers.
Mm.
Like that's like you must always let the customer walk away feeling like they won. If the customer feels like they got more value than they paid you for, then and I don't mean in a rip you off way. I mean, I
Yeah.
cannot believe that's all they charged me because they gave me so much more value. They're going to renew, they're going to recommend you, and then you get the opportunity to work with more and better people and more customers. So I think that those lessons apply whether you're leading a company of thousands or where you're leading a company of one, building a business. Show up, act with integrity, and give the customer more value than they paid for.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. So if you could give your younger self a piece of advice before stepping into leadership, what would it be?
The number one thing I would have told a very much younger self was embrace a daily discipline of mindfulness meditation, taking a pause once a day, twice a day to just simply be still and think would have been, it's a wonderful practice because it allows you to get used to pausing. And that's a skill that as a leader you need to have, because what you have to guard against is reaction. Everything we do as a leader is on stage. People are watching us. We're always being evaluated. If we say lose our temper or do something wrong, we're going to be judged for that,
Yeah.
and rightly so. A daily mindfulness meditation practice gives you the opportunity to install a circuit breaker that prevents you from making a bad decision. You just allow yourself to pause. So I would have given my younger self that advice. I wish I'd learned that 30 years ago instead of 15 years ago. I think it would have made me even more impactful over the years.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for that. Dosti, if my audience is going to learn more about you and tell us more about yourself and how they could learn about you and connect with you.
Yeah, they can visit our website at arcusgroup.com, ARCQUS group.com. They can also go to Leadership Gap Assessment. If they just want to learn more about their leadership, we have a free assessment that we built that allows a leader to learn more about what might be holding them back and give them some insights as to how they can improve their leadership. Go to leadershipgapassessment.com and they'll be able to fill out that very quick assessment and learn more about opportunities, how they can continue to grow.
All right, thank you so much, Dusty. This has been an incredible, rich conversation from the power of daily discipline to the importance of servant leadership. You have shown us that leadership isn't just about position; it's about purpose. For those listening, Dusty has free leadership gap assessment at leadershipgapassessment.com. It's a quick tool to help you identify where you might be struggling as a leader and get practical steps to grow. To our listener, thank you for tuning in. Remember, whether you are leading a team, a trade business, or just yourself, clarity and daily discipline can transform your journey. Until next time, keep building, keep leading, and keep inspiring. Once again, thank you, Dusty.
Thank you, Aro.
Yeah, thank you. So